So as some of you may know, I recently got the Shrek box set this Christmas. And I have been teasing the fact that I'm gonna watch and review every Shrek movie thus far. You know, if they ever decide to make a freaking Shrek 5 already. But yeah, for now, let's just start. And there are actually other exclusive things in there like Shrek the Musical, Puss in Boots, Shrek Shorts, you know, all of that canon stuff. Not that swamp talk crap. So let me know if you want me to review those. And also, I had written the plot of these movies in spreadsheets, and I'll link them below if you wanna check them out. Anyway, let's start with the first one. There was a lovely princess. She needed a prince. Shrek goes out of his outhouse and does all of these pretty things and is wanted and stuff. All-star plays. He scares them. You know, all of that. Shrek tells everyone how scary ogres are, and they run away. There are a bunch of gnomes in labor and stuff. Then we see Donkey. A woman says he can talk, and he's afraid to. She fails to make him talk, and Donkey flies while he's a flying talking donkey. He almost gets seized, but then arrives at Shrek due to circumstances. Donkey starts being Donkey. Shrek gets annoyed, and lets Donkey know he's an ogre. Donkey learns he's Shrek, and Shrek shows him his home. Shrek refuses for Donkey to stay with him, but lets him anyway. Shrek makes an earwax candle and vibes. A bunch of people come into Shrek's house and make chaos in his swamp. He makes them get out. Apparently, Lord Farquaad made them come there. Shrek wants to see Lord Farquaad. It cuts to his palace with the gingerbread man and stuff. He's accused to be a monster. The Muffin Man is discussed. And yada yada. Farquaad is shown possible wives for the kingdom by the magic mirror on the wall. He chosses Princess Fiona. Shrek comes to the kingdom to see what's up. Then it's quiet. Then there's a tournament. And Shrek is noticed. The Lord wants him to be killed. Then Shrek manages to get out. Shrek is then given a second chance after deemed worthy for saving Fiona. If he goes on this quest, then Shrek will get his swamp back due to the fact that these creatures are being held hostage there by Farquaad. We then learn ogres have layers and are like onions and not like cakes. Shrek then embarks on a journey to save Fiona. He then arrives at the scary place. Donkey gets scared over a bridge over lava. They eventually go across. They then go inside to rescue Fiona. They then go up in the highest room in the tallest tower to find Fiona like in the fairy tales. Because it's fairy tale land. They then see the They eventually are able to find a shortcut past the dragon and into Fiona's place they go. Donkey then starts flirting with the dragon. Shrek then goes to rescue Fiona. She finds out he's named Shrek. Then the dragon had killed the knights after not being slayed yet. Donkey is still flirting. Shrek makes the dragon mad, so they have to escape. They make it out. Shrek is then pretty much forced by Fiona to get his mask off. She then figures out an ogre and gets a bit frustrated. She wanted Farquaad instead. Shrek then picks her up to take her back. Shrek and Donkey lol. They eventually hang out in a place for the night. They look at stars. They talk about things like his swamp and stuff. Shrek is sad about how people react to him about being an ogre after some conversation with Donkey. They look out into the distance. Farquaad relaxes. Fiona sings. She cooks food. Shrek wakes up. They continue walking on their journey. There is some random quote-unquote savior that tries and saves Fiona. There's then a random group of guys that sing for her. Fiona doesn't like it, and defends herself. Shrek gets an arrow in his butt. Donkey is told to calm down. Fiona tries to pull it out. She then unexpectedly pulls it out. Donkey needs to be carried after pretty much passing out. He gets back up, and they continue on their journey. Fiona gets worried about Donkey. It's eventually evening, and they hang out to eat. Shrek and Fiona flirt. Fiona needs to go inside because it's getting dark. She's quote-unquote afraid. Shrek and Donkey start talking while Shrek needs some alone time because he's an ogre. Donkey searches for Fiona. He sees an ogre. It turns out to be Fiona, who just fell from the floor. She explains that she has a curse where whenever the sun goes down she becomes a beautiful ogre. A witch put the spell on her, and she needs a true love's kiss to break it. Donkey comforts her. Shrek overhears this, and thinks they are talking about something different. Donkey sits down by the fire. Fiona eventually wants to tell Shrek, but can't find him. The sun rises, so then it's too late. Shrek is now angry because he thought she was calling him an ugly beast. The kingdom arrives to take Fiona. Farquaad thinks she's beautiful. Fiona accepts. They need to get married. Shrek thinks that Donkey and Fiona are pals, and is frustrated and decides he wants to be on his own in his swamp without Donkey. Sad music plays. It's very sad as they all miss each other. Shrek throws the flower into the fire. Farquaad gets ready. Hallelujah plays. Shrek sees Donkey again. They fight against if it's Shrek's or their swamp. They keep fighting. Donkey calls Shrek an onion boy. Donkey tells Shrek Fiona wasn't talking about him. Shrek admits he wasn't being nice and asks to be forgiven. Donkey gets the dragon he fell in love with to take them to the wedding. They go inside and do it right once the dragon drops them off. Shrek goes to the wedding and wants to go to Shrek after Farquaad insults him. Shrek says Farquaad isn't true love whenever he says that he only wants to marry her so he can be king. Fiona becomes an ogre. People are shocked. Shrek understands now. Farquaad wants them out because he's a poop head. He wants Fiona back in the tower. Then Donkey and the dragon come in. Shrek tells Fiona he loves her. They kiss. Fiona becomes an ogre permanently. It's beautiful. They live happily ever after. They throw a party and sing I'm Believer. Shrek and Fiona go in carriage. All the fairy tale characters dance and sing to I'm a Believer to celebrate. The book closes like a story. Donkey can barely breathe. The end credits play and it's a beautiful story. The end. Okay, so now for the reviewing part. To be honest, I felt more invested and understanding in the plot when writing it out. Not to say I wasn't already before, but it felt deeper. I can't really describe it. But okay. Now that I've watched it, I'll give it a rating. Now obviously, I would rate it a 10 out of 10. But let's actually be real here. Let's put all of the memes aside and generally rate it with what I genuinely think the movie should be rated. And now, I think I will rate it with a solid 8.5 out of 10. Not exactly a 10 out of 10. But it also barely fits the line with 9. So 8.5 is a good answer. I've also watched this several times. You can tell me your ratings in the comments too. Now, moving on. Shrek 2. They explain Fiona's story. There is a prince trying to reach the dragon's kingdom. He wanted to save Fiona. Then he saw a wolf instead of her. The wolf says she's on her honeymoon. Then it's Shrek's honeymoon. They scare Little Red Riding Hood, but have a good time. Shrek almost drops the ring. They frolic in the fields. Beautiful. They also battle idiots. They do a lot of things. Okay. Then. They are in Shrek's swamp. Donkey is there and everything and isn't supposed to be there. And has fish. They talk about how Dragon is moody. They tell Donkey to leave them alone as a couple. Then there are people in front of their swamp. They explain that there will be a royal ball from the king and queen of far, far away, to Fiona's parents. They are afraid that they will judge them for being ogres. They argue for a bit. They then go on a carriage there anyways. And Donkey is being annoying. It's taking a long time. Donkey is being really annoying. But then they finally arrive at far, far away. Shrek is upset about being here. They go to the palace on horses. Nice. People are confused of them being beautiful ogres. Her parents are disrespectful. Specifically her dad. Fiona introduces Shrek. Shrek and Fiona's dad don't like each other. Then Fiona's dad sees Donkey. Donkey drinks soap water. Then the king and queen talk about children. Shrek and the king, Fiona's dad, argue. Fiona is sad and sees bubbles. Not unmentally stable, kinda sad like she's high or something. Then she sees her fairy godmother. Normal. The fairy godmother explains what she does. She says all of your problems will fade away. Fiona says she doesn't need it. Shrek sees this all along with Donkey. The godmother is confused why Shrek is her Prince Charming. She goes off because they don't want anything. Shrek and Fiona argue about ogres. Fiona is sad. The king argues with the queen about how Fiona's husband is an ogre. The king goes out. He sees the fairy godmother and she says they need to talk. They go in a little carriage thin. They seem to have met each other before. She says that there was a wolf at the tower the prince saw instead of Fiona and she is mad Shrek got to her first and that is why she called the king who she must have seen in advance. They eat and the fairy godmother wants the prince to be Fiona's husband instead and tells the king to make a plan to make that happen. The king goes to a bar looking for the ugly stepsister, voiced by Larry King. The king asks her where Shrek is. Shrek is now sleeping in bed. He can't sleep, actually. So he gets up and vibes by the fireplace while looking at Fiona's old stuff. He grabs her diary. He reads her entries and how she talked about being saved by her Prince Charming because that's what she was told. It keeps saying Miss Fiona Charming. The king walks up to Shrek's door to apologize. They agree to get to know each other. Shrek and Donkey go out to the forest as the king directs for hunting. And they get lost. Evil plan? Foreshadowing? Shrek starts talking with Donkey about life. They then meet the Puss in Boots. Shrek gets hurt from all of this chaos. The puss hawks something up, and tells Shrek and Donkey that Fiona's father paid him to do this. Shrek gets sad about this whole Prince Charming situation. Shrek finds a card from the fairy godmother that says happiness, one teardrop away. Shrek makes Donkey cry to get the wish. A bubble of the fairy godmother pops up explaining that she'll do anything for them. Shrek walks up to the Puss in Boots feeling bad. He wants to keep him. Fiona wakes up and doesn't see Shrek and gets confused. Shrek pops into the fairy godmother's house for the spell. They then find her doing some things. She gets a bit mad. Shrek explains that Fiona isn't exactly happy. The fairy godmother looks through fairy tales and explains that ogres don't live happily ever after, and that's why she's sad. Obviously, the godmother wants Shrek to go. Shrek and his gang then have to look for the spell for Fiona to be happy instead. They find the happily ever after potion, and it's for beauty, which is exactly what Fiona wants. A bunch of things fall, and Donkey catches their potion, but then an alarm goes off, and they have to escape from the house, out from the front desk and everything. A brew spills on the workers, and spells get cast on them. Godmother wants the mess to be cleaned up. She blames Shrek because she's rude. They try and come up with a plan. Shrek looks at the potion, and wants to try it to make him quote-unquote beautiful. Donkey's donkey senses are tingling. Donkey feels nothing after drinking it. Maybe it doesn't work on donkeys. Shrek drinks the rest and he farts. It starts raining. A mushroom is then shown to transform into a flower after being spiked with the potion. Shrek and the gang go to find shelter. Shrek feels kind of sad. They then fall asleep. It then cuts to the palace. After the king had told Fiona to think things through earlier, she says she wants to go back to the swamp with Shrek. Shrek's shelter is then shown to glow. Fiona falls asleep. There is a glow in Fiona's palace too. Shrek wakes up and sees girls. The potion has now worked and Shrek is quote-unquote handsome. The girls start flirting with him. Donkey is now a big white horse. Puss looks at the side effects. For the potion to not be permanent, you need to have a true love's kiss by midnight. The girls don't get to be Shrek's true love, as it's already Fiona. Shrek and Donkey go out. Donkey pretends to be hurt, and someone's father rides Donkey. Never mind, it's just Shrek. Shrek is now more respected in public. Fiona wakes up, and is no longer an ogre. Shrek arrives at the palace, and Fiona hears Shrek. Shrek sees the godmother. Donkey explains to Fiona what happened. Fiona goes out to find Shrek. Shrek is held back by the godmother. The prince pretends to be Shrek who had drank the potion, so he can be the Prince Charming instead. Shrek is meanwhile trapped with the fairy godmother, the evil fairy godmother. Fairy godmother makes Shrek sad and convinces him to leave. The king and queen are skeptical of whether this is all a good idea. Shrek and the gang go to the bar. Shrek explains things at the bar. Is it just me? Or does this feel like Moe's from The Simpsons? Anyway, the king meets up with the fairy godmother and the prince, and they discuss things. They see Shrek and the gang. There's then a show for Shrek and Fiona. The fairy tale characters are watching. Shrek is then shown to be taken away by knights. The king is kind of sad about this situation. Fiona is shown looking out the window. She's concerned about quote-unquote Shrek looking different and losing his mind, and she wants him back. Shrek is now stuck in a castle being trapped and hung up. The fairy tale characters had seen Shrek on TV saying he was Shrek, so they look for him, and find him to rescue him and the gang from the prison thingy. They are rescued. Shrek must stop the kiss to stop this fake marriage from being permanent. Shrek needs to see the Muffin Man to have flour, so the gingerbread man leads him to there. Palms are shown to be falling down. There is now a giant from getting lots of from the Muffin Man and stuffed flour and stuff. The town of far far away is horrified. It is then shown that the prince and Fiona are at the marriage show thingy. They dance and Fiona is confused why quote unquote Shrek is different. The giant gingerbread man is shown walking towards the area with Shrek and gang. They cause some chaos on the way. The show continues. The giant gingerbread man falls in the water. Shrek gets into the show arena area they got in from that giant gingerbread man. The fairy godmother is mad. The gingerbread man grabs her wand, and they all try and fight for it. The prince then forces Fiona to kiss him. Then Fiona knocks him to the ground before Fiona can have the potion in order for Fiona to stay this way. The fairy godmother gets mad and says ogres don't live happily ever after, but the king jumps in front to save them and gets cursed instead. The godmother gets destroyed, and apparently ogres do live happily ever after. People hear croaking. The king is now a frog. Apparently the king used to be a frog. The king apologizes for his mishaps. It's almost midnight, so Shrek and Fiona must kiss. They need to make sure this is what they want, to be ogres. They then decide to kiss, and everything starts going back to normal. Shrek and Fiona are now beautiful again, and potion was knocked off them. They then have a fiesta for marriage, and they lived happily ever after. And that's that. Now, for the rating. We obviously see all of the memes about how Shrek 2 is better than Shrek 1. And honestly, they are kind of a tie for me. But even with that, it's hard to say. Me and my sister had to sit down and discuss this. We were thinking that it was kind of a tie. But we thought about the fact that it didn't have all of the same Shrek vibes from the last movie. Still some though. But plot-wise, we decided that Shrek 2 was teensy-weensy ever so slightly better than Shrek 1. So we decided to slap this up to 0.1 than it was before, and rated it an 8.6 out of 10. Now this is just ignoring the memes and everything. Just straightforward looking at the plot. And I think this is a pretty reasonable rating. Now of course the meme rating with all of the movies would be above 10 and beyond. But this is just honestly looking at the plot. Oh, and also apparently Donkey's dragon wife was pregnant and had dragon donkey babies. And this movie won an Oscar award. It just really makes you think. Anyway, moving on to Shrek 3. This is gonna be kind of hard plot worthy, but I haven't watched it in a while, so we'll see. So starting out, the disgusting prince from the last movie is back again, and he's doing some sort of play, and everyone hates it. They are doing the play about what had happened in Shrek 2, but with a twist. It only goes his way. I mean, his hair kind of does look like a Karen in a way. Okay, so anyway, people roast this guy. So he runs and cries in an alleyway while having too much self-esteem, and seeing the headline about how the king is sick. Anyway, so Shrek and Fiona are in bed and the gang comes in to annoy them. So Shrek I guess hurts someone, I don't know what context that's in. Then he also burns a ship. He gets a makeover for some reason. I don't know. All of this is done out of context. But yeah, this makeover is horrible. So apparently this is to cheer people up about the king being sick. Shrek gets his butt scratched, and their clothes fall off after some chaos. And then destruction happens. Anyway, so Shrek gets into bed. It's already evening. Then Fiona and Shrek talk about babies. Then apparently the king is dying. Then they keep thinking he's dying, but then he doesn't. So yeah, this king is dying as a frog. Oh, and also Shrek is told to be the new king. There is also one remaining guy that could be king instead, and his name is Arthur. And then the king dies. Then it's kind of a sad vibe from there. Far, far away is sad. They put him in a pond in his coffin for a funeral. So now the prince is at a bar. And then the ugly stepsister says he isn't welcome here. Then everybody is mad at him. I guess this is because of what happened in Shrek 2. He wants people to join him for his side of the story to be told for a quote-unquote happily ever after. The donkey babies fly, and the puss is trying to find a mate. Donkey is mauled by his babies. Basically Shrek is about to go out to find Arthur. Fiona wants him to be king, but Shrek is denying. Fiona wants to tell him something. Then Shrek is leaving. Then Fiona is trying to say she's pregnant and a horn keeps blocking. But then Shrek finally figures it out, Fiona is pregnant. It's nighttime now. Shrek is back at his swamp. He comes inside after hearing Fiona. Then he sees a baby carriage. And there it is. An ogre baby. It pukes all over him. There are a bunch of babies now. He has to collect them all. Now there's loads of them. They dress him weirdly. Donkey is a baby. Turns out it was just a nightmare due to the fact Shrek is nervous from the babies. Apparently Shrek is worried about ruining the kids. And then Shrek arrives at his destination. Apparently they are at a high school. So Shrek tries to look for Arthur there. He's on a horse. Shrek mistakes someone for Arthur. They try and find him. Then Shrek walks in on the costume contest after convincing someone he wearing an ogre costume. Then they finally find Arthur. Then Shrek tells him that he's the king. So now he's all proud. Then Fiona is eating cake. She's at a baby shower. She opens a present and it's some sort of living babysitter. The person who gave it to her says she can have more romance now. Then the stupid prince is with his stupid gang to live quote-unquote happily ever after. He's tarnishing the town. The dragon is mad. They put a net over her. Oh no, and Fiona opens a secret bunker to be protected. The fairy tale characters say they don't know where Shrek is. Then the stupid prince asks Pinocchio. He tries to prevent himself from lying. Then the stupid prince wants the new king to get rid of him. Shrek is now on the boat with Arthur. They discuss him being king. The boat all of the sudden gets out of control. Now Arthur doesn't wanna be king because he doesn't know how to do it. They crash into a rock because the wheel is broken. They now have to get to land themselves. Now everyone is all frustrated. Arthur really doesn't wanna be king. Shrek tries to convince him to. Then Arthur yells for help and summons a head. Then some sort of wrinkle sack walks out of the cottage. He seems crazy. Then they continue to fight. The old guy is trying to help them and wants them to take a journey to their soul or else it's primal scream therapy. Then he shows them some birds or whatever in a fire. Basically it's the daddy bird abandoning the son. Like how Arthur's dad abandoned him. Wait, his dad abandoned him? Then they kind of have a real talk about what's going on. Arthur still doesn't wanna be king. They talk about dads, and how they ditched both of them. Shrek talks about how he used to be a bad ogre, with a bad dad. but now he's good. Then Fiona is back in the bunker with the baby shower people. Fiona sneaks in on what's going on. Then they threaten to destroy her. Then now the stupid prince has a girl who will be the new queen of Far Far Away with him. But he can't just do that. He threatens Shrek too. Shrek and the gang were sleeping by the fire. Then all of a sudden there are living walking trees and people trying to attack them. That's normal. They put them in nets and stuff and try to trap them. Then they escape. Shrek is kind of giving up on Arthur. Now, apparently, the wrinkle sack is actually Merlin. They want him to cast a spell to get back to Far Far Away because there is the stupid prince. Merlin says he has no magic. Then Arthur begs like a toddler. So Merlin decides to try even if he's a bit rusty. Then it works. And they go through some sort of portal. And then Puss and Donkey swap bodies because the magic is wonky. Then Shrek and the gang arrive back to Far Far Away. Then Pinocchio is trying to tell them what happens. And then they have to pay to pull up the curtains. He leads them to a play called Shrek's Last Play. They are stopped by knights. The knights stop because Shrek is supposed to be at the play. The stupid prince is practicing for this horrible play. Then he starts talking to himself after being frustrated. The knights led Arthur to the stupid prince and he's mad. Shrek says that he was originally meant to be king, but Arthur was put in the job instead. Shrek wants him to go into the job. Then Arthur is frustrated from the stupid prince's words. And now we're back at that signature sad moment in Shrek. They are getting ready for the horrible play, and Arthur is outside the kingdom. Fiona and the baby shower people are stumped. Donkey and his people are thrown into jail, and apparently the baby shower people had been thrown in too. They want to try and get out. Then Fiona's mom breaks the wall in the jail to get out. Then she's all loopy. Then they get ready for the grand escape. Shrek and the stupid prince are getting ready for the show play thingy. As the tree people guard the kingdom, one of the princesses from the baby shower disguises as a normal singing princess. Then she gets all aggressive. The trees are tackled by animals. Donkey sees his children and they tackle him. The baby shower people go through all of the guards and stuff, and they make their way into the kingdom. The play starts. Shrek is there. This play is really bad. Shrek is cracking up some comedy as the stupid prince is trying to get to killing him and making him look like a monster. He starts to be the stupid prince he is. Then the whole gang comes in to fight, and the dragon burns up his sword. They are all here to save Shrek. The stupid prince is mad. Then the stupid prince's gang tries to attack Shrek's gang. Then Arthur shows up. He explains that they shouldn't be villains their whole lives, and says a whole speech. The villains listen to him. They throw out their weapons. Fiona and Shrek are released. The stupid prince is fed up. He doesn't like this. They have a chain with a sword, and the chain goes towards Shrek after tug-of-war and gets him. Or does it? The prince missed his aim, and a giant tower prop falls on him. Yay! The crown rolls out and Arthur grabs it and puts it on. As he accepts being king, Merlin appears. He swamps back Donkey and Puss. Then Shrek and Fiona kiss, go back to the swamp, Then the babies are shown. Donkey and Puss walk in. The babies play with Puss lol. A baby baths on Fiona's mother. Shrek goes on a mudslide. They attempt to change diapers and stuff. The babies are finally put to sleep. And Shrek and Fiona sleep too. And they live happily ever after. The end. For Shrek 3 at least. Now, for the ratings. It's definitely better than people say it is. But I do see what they mean by lack of plot. There aren't many notable things. And the way the plot comes together is that everything just kind of happens. Not with a reason from before. That's a risky thing to do with cinematography. So, did they pull it off well? Well, you be the judge. I'm gonna be kind of biased here, and just say what I think of it myself. Now, I'm definitely gonna rate it lower than some of the other ones, and give it a... Wait, before I say the rating, I need to just clarify some things. I hadn't really seen the bad in Shrek the Third, until I watched Scrophilus Productions' video explaining why it was a cinematic disaster. Then my whole view changed. He had explained some things in there that I had thought about and considered before watching it, but I never really took it in. Basically, you have to realize that Shrek the Third doesn't have any major plot movement. It wasn't as funny as some of the other ones, and didn't showcase Shrek's fears and arcs very well. Even whenever they did, it was done in a comedic manner where it doesn't really have a point. Literally the only thing that was important about it was that they had babies. But the beginning of Shrek Forever After recaps basically everything you need to know, just showing the babies. I know some people go as far as saying that Shrek the Third shouldn't even be canon. I still think it's reasonable to put it in the Shrek saga whether you like it or not. It's still a Shrek film, but it definitely wasn't necessary, nor was it that great. I think that the reason I hadn't thought about all of this before was because I was just going by the general movie, which even then still wasn't that great. Now, I don't literally despise it like some other people do. I don't know. I guess I'm just good at seeing the good in things, or I just have really bad taste in cinematography. But that still definitely doesn't mean I like it, especially after considering the things I just learned. It's not absolutely dreadful just watching it, but you can't help but put all this into consideration. So because of that, I'm gonna lower what was originally gonna be my rough 5.9 rating to 4.0 out of 10. Yes, I understand that some people might still not agree with this, but it's still a reasonable rating compared to my other one. Now I can sleep with a sense of relief knowing that people won't judge me nearly as much for rating Shrek the Third nearly 6 out of 10. Damn, what was I thinking? Now, let's move on to Shrek Forever After. As if that's the end? Ha ha ha. Shrek never ends. Shrek Forever. Now I personally can't watch it all the way through, as it isn't very good, but maybe it will be different if I write about it as I'm watching it. We'll see. Now let's begin. Now, at the beginning, they review what has happened in the story. Then it cuts to a carriage. It's going into Crown's Nest. The king and queen are in it and going into some creepy graveyard area. Then they start talking about how Rumpelstiltskin is their last chance for Fiona? I don't know. Then he gets out some sort of restraining order. And then Fiona had been saved right at that moment. So I guess Fiona would have been saved by the order if that hadn't happened. Then Pinocchio kicks Rumpelstiltskin out of a room. Then Shrek is back at the swamp sleeping with his ogre babies. The babies poop and they stink. Then after some chaos, after Shrek is trying to relax, Donkey and the fairy tale characters burst in and help them finish the fairy tale they're reading. The next morning, the babies are still chaotic. It's kind of like Groundhog's Day, to be honest. The same baby situation each day. Shrek is then frustrated with this. Shrek looks in the mirror and is kind of ashamed of the ogre he's become. As they are flying in the air on Dragon to the castle, Shrek is feeling grumpy. Then there's a birthday. And then someone's son wants him to do the roar. Shrek is shown a cake. Then as he's carrying it out, the kid still wants him to do the roar. Then some chaotic things are happening and Shrek gets frustrated. The pigs ate the cake. They still want him to do the roar. And then he gets so angry he does the roar. Shrek is still angry and destroys the cake. He runs out of the room. Shrek and Fiona are kind of arguing about their children's first birthday. They are also talking about how Shrek wants to be a real ogre. Then Fiona is kind of disappointed, and goes back inside. Shrek walks out into the forest. Then Rumpelstiltskin is stuck under a carriage. So he wants him to come in to enjoy some dinner and some drinks and stuff or whatever. Then Shrek wants one day to be a real ogre. Then Rumpelstiltskin convinces him to sign some sort of restraining order for him to be a real ogre for a day. So Shrek decides everything and signs this order. Then he is automatically transported to a day when he was a real ogre. He scares everyone and stuff. He crashes weddings, scares children, ruins people's picnics. The whole town hates him. He seems to be enjoying himself. Then he sees a bunch of wanted posters for Fiona, I believe. And then his swamp seems to be all trashed. He wants to look for Fiona. He only sees mice and stuff. He looks at the order and is confused and a bit frustrated. Then a witch comes by and they are trying to get him with her friends. They get him with an apple and eventually Shrek is in a carriage with old Donkey singing. The witches hate it, so they slap him while he's dragging the carriage. He eventually sings a song that they like. Then Shrek talks to him, and Shrek thinks he's still his friend. Donkey is confused. Shrek arrives at an ugly town, and is released into some sort of witch party place. He sees a lot of recognizable faces. Rumpelstiltskin kind of rules this place now for some reason and is delivering orders. Shrek talks to him. So apparently Shrek made all of this possible probably through the restraining order. So the king and queen disappeared after they wanted all of their problems to disappear too. Whenever an hourglass runs out, he's gone. Because he doesn't truly exist in this new world. Shrek is trying to ride away from this chaos. He grabs Donkey. He makes it out after defeating everyone. Donkey is horrified. Shrek tries to calm him down. Donkey runs away anyway. Shrek is obviously kind of bummed. He doesn't have his family and stuff. Donkey is back as he looks at his little ogre stuffy thingy. Donkey is kind of sad after thinking about grandmas and stuff. Donkey makes a paper airplane from the restraining order. Then they unfold it and it goes perfectly into true love's kiss. So that's the solution to breaking the order. Shrek runs up to where Fiona should be to get a kiss. Then she isn't there. Shrek is sad. He then finds tallies of the days Fiona had been there. Then Shrek finds some sort of cloth, and he wants Donkey to sniff it so they can try and find Fiona. Donkey finds some waffles and gets attracted instead, and it seems suspicious. Then it seems to be a trap. Shrek jumps down into the trap to save Donkey. It leads to some place where ogres are working, and they start talking to him normally. They dress him up in the labor clothes so he can work too. This is a place called the Resistance where they fight for ogres everywhere apparently. Donkey is horrified. They fight over him on a stick. Then Fiona is seen there at the Resistance. Wow. Shrek runs up to her. She then says personal space is important to her. She then gets pissed and kicks him. Then Shrek explains what happened. Fiona says she must have kicked him harder than I thought. Everyone eventually hides as they see the witches. Then Rumpelstiltskin is having dinner or something with witches and he talks about how he got rid of ogres. And he has a breakdown over Shrek escaping and how this whole world can go if that happens. He starts breaking down and killing people. Fiona is holding some sort of briefing with the Resistance as they make a plan to attack the witches and stuff. As Shrek is trapped with Donkey, they discuss things and also how things are in the normal world. Then Shrek walks in some place and sees a fat puss. So basically he's a chonk in this other world. Shrek is shocked. Shrek tries giving some things to Fiona to have a chance at love. Shrek eventually gets her to hug him but then gets kicked. Puss is sad as Fiona notices how fat he is. The pigs are shown doing jobs for Rumpelstiltskin. Meanwhile, the witches and stuff are dancing. And okay, I don't really understand. The ogres eat. Donkey pops eyes through his nose. Shrek is frustrated as it's like Fiona doesn't even know him. Shrek once again tries to impress her, but inevitably fails. But they kind of enjoy each other as they start fighting. Puss overlooks them. It seems as if they were practicing. So Fiona kind of leaves. He starts talking with Puss about this, and Donkey scares him. Fiona then later tries to pin him down after all of this. Then meanwhile, the ogres start to fight the witches. Then apparently Shrek had told her about how he knew about her curse. And that's why she pinned him down and she doesn't want him to tell anyone. Fiona is kind of confused. They discuss things. Then they randomly get forced to dance. And the other ogres are dancing too. Apparently it's because a piper is playing music. Then they all run out from some sort of witch or something because apparently they're back and jump down to a nearby river where they stay for the night with Donkey. Then Fiona wants to go out and save the ogres. Then Shrek wants to kiss her to help. Then they kiss. And I guess it isn't true love. And apparently in this universe, she saved herself. She wished someone had saved her. Rumpelstiltskin is then being a butt and wants makeup to talk about how he hates Shrek on some sort of broadcast. Then Shrek and Donkey see Gingerbread Man. They decide Shrek should go talk to Rump. Rumpelstiltskin is then looking through the ogres the witches caught to try and find Shrek. Then Shrek actually comes in. Shrek says he isn't here to get his life back, but to save the ogres. Then Shrek is still trapped in Rump's palace. Shrek wants Fiona to be safe too. And the Fiona is actually trapped too. Oh no, and the Rump didn't free her because she isn't all ogre. Then Fiona starts saying thank you to Shrek after they are left alone. Donkey wants to go save Shrek. The witches are seen being annoying from the deck. Then Donkey and the ogres are making a plan to bust into the palace to save Shrek and Fiona. Then Shrek and Fiona are put in some sort of chamber for people to watch them fight what is Otherworld Dragon. Donkey comes in and starts singing. Then the ogres busted in too. They are fighting the witches as Rump is confused. Dragon is unleashed. Shrek wants Donkey to get romantic with his Otherworld wife. Then he gets eaten and Puss stabs him and Dragon gets Donkey out. Shrek tries to pull down Fiona from the chains. The ogres are still fighting their way out of this. Dragon nips at the cages. But then Shrek and Fiona hang on the chains. Rump is surrounded by ogres. Then Shrek and Fiona are talking with each other after the fight. And Shrek is running out of time and so Fiona kisses him as he fades away because the day he was born was taken away. Then Fiona is still an ogre after sunrise, which means true love. So this whole other world is disappearing now. Then Shrek and everything is back to normal in the normal world. Then Shrek replies to Fiona that he's okay after he was asked. Then the birthday is celebrated. Then they live happily ever after. The end. Oh, and Shrek meets the other ogres in real life and is back at his swamp. Now, for the review. Personally, I feel as if this was unnecessary. We could have done without it. It doesn't bring any major twists to the story. I mean, at least it has a plot, and it's better than I remember, but it doesn't quite give me that Shrek vibe. So it was hard to rate, but the final rating is 5.7 out of 10. The reason for this is that the reviews are kind of mixed. And I do feel as if it's best for these last couple of movies. I mean, 4 movies is a lot. I know that Shrek Forever After has a lot of good reviews, and people say that it's underrated. But what I am doing here is just kind of taking everything into consideration. This factor for the rating is kind of just what I thought of it myself. And taking things with a grain of salt. I did this rating before I really truly dig into my research of this. So it may not be the absolute best rating, and it would definitely vary depending on what you think of it. Kind of the same as Shrek the Third. I'm already fearing all of the different people who are gonna come at me in the comments saying that I should have rated the third one way lower. I can't make a rating that would be fitting for everyone. It's really hard to rate something with all of these opinions surrounding it. Now, Shrek 5. Obviously, it isn't out yet, but there have been rumors of the script being finished. And what it could be. But there isn't a full-out solid answer on what's really going on here. So I'll close it up here for now. But if it does ever come out, I'll redo this whole video with Shrek 5. But okay, now let's rate the franchise overall. Meme-worthy. It's epic. I'd rate it 10 Shreks out of 10 Shreks. But I do think we actually need to do this just looking straight forward at the plot, and not just the memes. And as we already know, that's pretty hard to do considering a lot of us only started watching it because of the memes. But we can tell that Shrek is still actually a very good movie plot-wise, as it was recently added to the National Film Registry. And we do know it is just genuinely a good movie all around in general. So knowing all that, I decided to punch all of our ratings into an average calculator, as I'm too lazy to do the maths myself. So the average is 6.5 out of 10. It might not be what you expected, but in the scheme of things, it's actually pretty good in the grand scheme of things, especially considering those last two movies. But now it's time for you guys to decide, and write what you'd rate each movie in the comments down below. You can go to the Shrek wiki for more information I might have missed, and I linked the spreadsheet I used and the doc I used to probably below, and anything else. But anyway, I think that's about it. And anyway, bye.